Hi, it's John and welcome to the channel. Great to have you along today. It is 6 a.m., May the 2nd. I've got my big blue mug of coffee. Friday, looking forward to the weekend, and I apologize if this becomes a little bit of a rant today. It may, I don't know. But I'm gonna go off on Jason Kenney today, former Premier of Alberta, former cabinet minister under Stephen Harper, a number of different portfolios, very well-accomplished man, but he ain't reading the room. Calls himself an Albertan, drives around in a pickup truck. He ain't getting it. He's not understanding what's going on here. He's been hanging out in Ottawa too long. You need to talk to the people out here. I did when I went out to Poilievre's rally just before the election. Everybody I talked to, and I spoke to dozens of people, said, if the Liberals get in, it's over for Alberta. We need to get the hell out. And now Kenney's wading into the separatist movement, calling us a fringe movement. Do you remember, I think it was Trudeau called us an unacceptable fringe a few years ago. Remember that? I didn't forget that. Why am I talking about this? Well, there's been a lot of articles right now. The elites out in Ottawa are starting to think maybe something's happening out here in Alberta because we're organizing, folks. Tomorrow there is an independence rally in Edmonton. I'm driving 3 hours from Calgary. If you live in the Edmonton area, anywhere within an hour, you need to be at the legislature from 1 to 3. I'm emceeing the event. There'll be a number of speakers. I understand there'll be some agitators showing up as well, so we need to yell those nuts down too. They're all on the left. But let's just look at this article. You're seeing lots of this right now. Carney must prioritize quelling Western discontent. Lots of stories right now about the separatist movement and Alberta leaving, particularly after the other day, the new rules that Danielle Smith laid out saying how many signatures we need to get a referendum. So this article's here, but I want to bring this to your attention. Braid, former UCP Premier Jason Kenney refutes separatists, says Carney has chance to right wrongs. He won't. He's not Trudeau 2.0, he's worse. I'm not going to read this whole article to you. I want to actually get to his X post because it's delusional. Because he didn't really go off right here like he did on his X post, which is just absolutely insane. So just quickly here, resentment and anxiety in Alberta, a very real thing, Kenney said in an interview. Alberta and the resource-producing parts of Western Canada have totally legitimate grievances about the direction of policy under the Trudeau government and totally legitimate anxieties about where it will go under Carney. But when it comes to separation, I think the so-called separatist movement in Alberta has never been a serious enterprise. It's always been a fringe movement that I think is counterproductive. Fringe movement. Just keep thinking this, Mr. Kenney. I remember somebody else who didn't understand, didn't get it, didn't read the room when it came to the separatist movement. I remember 1995. Remember, Mr. Kenney? Just keep thinking that way because John Chrétien thought it was a fringe movement in 95 when Quebec had a referendum. And I believe it was Jean Charest who came in at the last moment, made his name by saving the day. They came that close because people didn't understand the feelings of the people who lived in Quebec at the time. You, Mr. Kenney, are not understanding what's going on out here in Alberta, and you call yourself a Westerner. Today's separatist movement nowhere near as organized as it was in those days, talking about the National Energy Program, 1980s. Albertans were even angrier then to a point that a rally packed 2,500 people in Edmonton's Jubilee Auditorium. I've mentioned it here many times. Back in 2019, I spoke to James Albers, who was there as well. 1,100 people packed an auditorium in North Calgary. We're pissed off back then. How pissed off are they now? They wanted out then. We want out now. Carney's got an amazing opportunity to start with a clean slate, but he won't. Carney has said he wants Canada to be an energy superpower. Well, he's kind of waffled on that. I think green energy superpower. He thinks he can put up windmills and solar panels across the country, put wires in between them, and power a country, the second largest country in the world. Not going to happen. A line borrowed from Stephen Harper. He said he wants to get oil and gas to global markets and advance major projects. Build, build, build. Those things are all music to my ears. Do you know who Mark Carney is, Mr. Kenney? Do you have any idea who he is? Millions of people the other night voted for the Liberal Party because of 51st State. They don't know who Mark Carney is either. He's one of the biggest climate zealots on the planet. He's one of the leaders of the net zero movement in the world. Let me refresh your memory, Mr. Kenney.
We can't meet our ultimate objectives, which is to get to net zero emissions. We can't get there unless we do not just have a cap on emissions, but those emissions are brought effectively to zero.
Now, so far, carbon prices have been applied sparingly. They've been set far too low.
And Mr. Kenney, Danielle Smith has been very clear what Ottawa has to do to make nice with Alberta, laying out all of the rules and all the things that have to be done in order for Alberta to be satisfied. And from what I understand, and from what I've heard from Mr. Carney, he's committed to none of them.
And so I, at the very beginning of the campaign, said whoever got elected, I would expect them to address the 9 offensive pieces of legislation and policy that prevent us from being able to exercise our constitutional jurisdiction to develop our resources. We want to see a guaranteed access to economic corridors that include pipelines to get to new markets. We want the repealing of Bill C-69 so that we do not have an unending process for approvals that essentially means no more pipelines can be built. We need to lift the tanker ban off the BC coast. We need to eliminate the oil and gas emissions cap that has been proposed, which is a production cap. We need to scrap the so-called clean electricity regulations. We need to end the treatment of plastics as toxic. We need to abandon the net zero car mandate. We need to return oversight of the industrial carbon tax fully to provincial jurisdiction. And we need to halt the federal censorship of energy companies.
So let's go to Kenney's X post. Albertans have good reason to be deeply frustrated with Ottawa. He talks about the $20 billion we pay to the rest of the country each and every year. We're running deficits here in Alberta. If we could keep the $20 billion, we'd be rich, but we can't. And there's other grievances, by the way, to the Easterners who think we're just having a temper tantrum out here. Let's go down to here. In these and other fights, Alberta wins when we make alliances with other provinces and patiently make the case to our fellow Canadians. Well, how long do we have to be patient? 40 years? Takes us back to the National Energy Program. Just look at the recent polling showing that supermajorities support both oil and gas pipelines in every province. Yeah, and Carney is going to hitch his wagon to the Bloc Québécois, and just the other day, the leader of the Bloc Québécois said this.
And the fact that there's no future for oil and gas, at least in Quebec and probably everywhere.
Let's go back to Kenney's X post. He then goes into his resume for some reason. I don't know what he's trying to accomplish here by doing this. Perhaps he wants to be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada or something, like Doug Ford in Ontario and Tim Houston out in Nova Scotia. Like that'll be the day. Goes on to say this, will I join most Albertans in being disappointed with Monday's election results? Let's hold PM Carney to his words about making Canada a global energy superpower, deregulating to build big projects, including pipelines, which we can't do. But if we turn inward into a pointless debate on the charade of separation, we'll reverse that momentum, never make a threat you can't keep. Well, we're not making a threat, Mr. Kenney. It's a promise. There's going to be a vote on separation out here. Despite our frustrations, the vast majority of Albertans are and always will be proud Canadians. We know that Canada isn't perfect, but it's our home and native land. So there's your faux Canadian patriotism. Elbows up, Mr. Kenney. Elbows up. And then we go down here, and he goes to a place which I wish people would not go here, okay? We can't make any changes now because of something that happened decades ago. We honor those who went before us, including thousands of Albertans who died in the defense of Canada and who lie below gravestones marked forever by the maple leaf. Well, I honor those people. I go to Remembrance Day ceremonies, Mr. Kenney, but we can't make a change in Alberta because people died decades ago for their country? Is that what you're telling me? People always do this. And then he goes on to say, we're Alberta proud, will always be part of the true North, strong and free. No, we're going to leave. Back in the Second World War, Canadian soldiers fought against tyranny. Thomas Jefferson said, when the government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. Alberta fears the federal government. It's tyrannical, and we want it to stop. You make a military reference. Let me make another military reference for you. Mr. Kenney, Admiral Yamamoto, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, said, I will quote it exactly, I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. Well, Ottawa has awoken a sleeping giant, and Alberta now has a terrible resolve. And we're going to be successful. It won't be very long. Alberta is going to have a vote on separation, on its independence. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. Close to 30,000 subscribers here right now. Be at the Alberta Legislature tomorrow, 1 to 3. I will see you there for an independence rally, and I'll see you in the next one.